Hi, this is Ryan from bettertattooing.com, and today we are going to be going over our second tip to help you improve your line work. All right. Okay, now that that's over, let's go over second help, or second bit of help that we're going to be doing. I kind of came up with this one from spending some time watching YouTube, going around. I mean, I've seen this, over the years with people at conventions or even the shops I work at, where they're missing just one key part of the tattoo process equation that would, just by changing one simple thing, and identifying what this one simple thing is, it would be able to just make their line work so much better, right? This is actually for any technique that you're going to be using in tattooing, unless it calls for this specifically, which we can get into that another time. But so number two, this will be another short one today. This is bouncing skin. So, bouncing skin. What do I mean by this? Now, normally when you're doing a tattoo, you're trying to have an effective enough stretch to try and decrease the amount of feedback that the needle is going to get from skin's natural elasticity, right? So when you're doing a tattoo and you can see the skin moving just like it's a trampoline, right? It's just bouncing large waves, large oscillations off the skin based on when the needle's hitting it. Like that can be useful in some techniques we're going to be using. Superficial planning of washes or something for like black and gray work, or even in some cases larger groupings of needles that maybe need to come in at a different angle. You can use less elasticity to help those actually break through the skin. But when we're doing lining, we're trying to keep the skin taut enough that it's not going to eject those needles and not accept any of the pigment that we're trying to put in to actually create the line work, right? So normally what's going to happen when we stretch skin, let's go back to our handy skin model here, right? The epidermis, dermis, and we'll do subcutaneous tissues, connective tissues down below. When we are doing our tattoo, we want the needle to meet as little resistance, in essence, right, as it's going to be passing through the skin. How do we do that? If we leave the skin loose, what happens is it just ends up bending and absorbing, right, some of that needle strike as it comes down. And when it does that, I mean, this is not effective. I mean, it should be really wide in comparison to that, but whatever. When it does it, the actual amount of force that's able to penetrate into the skin after this, because I mean that skin, as it bends, let's just do this, right? As it bends, it ends up bending as well, right? Now this isn't actually how it looks when it does this, of course. I mean, it's going to be, skin is all different thicknesses all the way throughout your body, but if the needle has come down so far and it only has, we'll say 20%, right? We'll go less than 20% of the initial inertia that's coming into it as it's moving into the skin. It's only going to be able to go into the skin a fraction of the depth in comparison if it's, pulled tight. So while if it's pulled tight, our needle can get down into the dermis and deposit the pigment where we want it. If your skin isn't stretched effectively, it's going to end up stopping somewhere in the epidermis, or maybe even just between where the epidermis and the dermis meet. And it's not going to be able to effectively transplant pigment into the skin. So noticing that your skin is bouncing a lot, right, just means that you need to add a little bit more stretch onto the skin to make sure that the needle can pass through. Now, is there a trick to doing this if it doesn't work very effectively based on where you're at? Sometimes you can get, forearms are great, same with thighs for tattooing. Sometimes you can get calves, upper arms, chests, ribs especially, right, where you don't feel like you can get a good stretch. So how can we get a good stretch to help improve this? Because it's all part lining help. We need to identify and critically think about how to fix it, right? One, we need to increase tension, right? This is the most simple way to try and, we'll just make that a big one. Number one fix. This is number two. We're supposed to increase tension. We'll put an E on that as well. Let's just stretch a little bit harder, right? And this is going to be dependent on the type of person you're working with. I mean, if they're 89 years old and their skin is very, very, very thin, increasing tension to a point would be all right. At the same time, you may stretch so hard against their natural skin, that it'll rip, which is not fun to see. I tattooed a 97-year-old woman once. It was the second year I've been tattooing. I had a pretty taut stretch, and I put the needle in and her skin just split apart. And I was panicked, right? Because oh my God, what did I do? the person I was working with at the time came over and said, like, yeah, that was bad. This is how you should do it, which leads us to number 2, right? Past just doing that one, increasing tension, we can just increase pressure. So, pressure. Increased pressure is going to work better on some of those thicker skin areas that you're going to have, especially like the bicep and stuff. Instead of just stretching out as far as you can, maybe you can get a half decent stretch, but then push down against the actual body. Use the bones on the backside of like where the skin and the muscles are, or even the muscles, to help add a little bit of extra stretch. It'd be like taking something and stretching it over, right? You can use the body's own natural pliability to increase that tension on the skin. Another way you can do it is change posture. So this is for either you, I'll put a U and an R together, posture. Either you can change your posture or the client can, right? If you're working on a set of ribs and you have somebody just kind of like sitting like this and you're trying to stretch and stretch and stretch and it doesn't work, make them change how they're moving. Put that arm way up over their head, right? Have them twist their body back. Like, try to get them to do 90% of the work for you. That way when you go into your stretch, you can do that. At the same time, maybe you're sitting on a space in the body where you're leaning too far or you're just stretching too much and your posture is out of whack. Like, reposition yourself, remove that like distance between you and the space that you're working on. Try to get as close as you can so that you're comfortable when you're doing your tattoo, and that can also help your stretch, right? And that's it. Like, those 3 ones are probably going to be the easiest way for you to improve any of this stuff. We can get more into like posture at another time, but if you are seeing bouncing skin, like if you're doing a tattoo and your eyes look like they're blurring because it's moving so much, you probably need to increase tension, increase the pressure on the area, or have them or yourself change posture to improve your line work. Anyways, this has been Ryan from Better Tattooing, signing off. Hey.